word from our sponsor.
One of the big milestones that our show, the Get Authentic with Marcus August show, reached before our 1-year anniversary was being streamed/downloaded in 100 different countries around the globe. What this showed our brand and our team, that people all around the world love our guests, love our interaction, love our content, love our dialogue. And really and truly, our podcast is all about our listeners.
And now, back to our episode of Victory Circle Podcast. We hope you enjoy it.
Welcome, everybody, to Victory Circle Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Wilson. Today, we have Dr. Carlos Garcia from Tampa, Florida. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it, man. Happy to be here with you today on your podcast.
Thank you so much. So Carlos is the owner of Tampa Counseling and Wellness. He's a psychologist and a coach and speaker as well. So Carlos, man, since the first time that we met until now, your life has changed dramatically, man. What's been going on?
Totally. Man, a lot. I mean, where do I start? I'm in a position right now where I'm running this business here. We have a private practice here in Tampa, Tampa Counseling and Wellness, where we provide wellness and mental health services to the community. People that deal with anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress, all of those things, people who might be struggling in a relationship or something like that. It's really beautiful to watch the work that we're doing here, man, and helping people find more happiness, more abundance, and more joy in their lives. And I'm getting ready to be a father here for the first time in about a month or so. So I got a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of fear going on right there, but also just feeling super blessed about this next journey that I'm getting ready to walk here, brother.
Oh, that's great, man. That's so exciting. Yeah. I can honestly say that one of the most powerful and greatest moments of my entire life was the birth of my son.
Oh, man, I keep hearing that from parents, these really like powerful statements like you don't know love until you know the love of a parent for a child. And like, man, I start getting really emotional. I get goosebumps when I think about it. And I hear these powerful statements. So thank you for sharing that. That's the part I'm really excited about, And then there's all the unknown and the uncertainty and the madness that ensues when you have a kid in the house, but I'm ready to embrace that as well, man.
Do you know the sex yet?
We're gonna make it a surprise, so we'll find out on the day here coming up real soon.
Wow, no, I couldn't wait until the end, man. I had to know in the beginning.
Yeah, it's definitely anxiety provoking a little bit, but one of the reasons, I'll sort of speak to that, and I think one of the things, I told you that my wife's a therapist too, and so both her and I have been in counseling in the past. And we both have a really profound understanding of the nature of how our past experiences develop who we are as adults, the kinds of relationships we have, the ideas and beliefs we have about the world and about ourselves. And so as we were, getting pregnant, we thought, what's the first question people ask you when you tell them that you're expecting is, what's the gender, right? Or what's the sex? Right. And it's just interesting how not only our culture here, but cultures around the world, right, as a result of that, right, we paint the room pink or blue. We get the toys that are going to match. And to me, it didn't make sense that before this child even comes into the world, we're already giving them a story about who they are.
Yeah.
Right. And so we thought that it would better to be just like, hey, this when this baby comes, as long as it's healthy, we're going to be happy. And we're just going to be try to be the best parents and guides that we can be.
Oh, that's a great perspective.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So Carlos, how does your life start? When you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, buddy, we can be talking here for weeks. My life has been a real detour, Jason. I talk to young people a lot who are feeling a sort of pressure, right, as they're starting to graduate high school because they don't know what to do. I think we do our younger generations a real disservice, especially in this country, when we put an expectation on them that by the time they're 17 or 18, that they should know what they want to do with the rest of their lives. I mean, that's insane. Yeah. How different of a man are you than you were even 5 years ago? Imagine 10, 15, right?
Right.
And so I think we really need to be more about passing on a message of, sometimes it's going out there in the world and finding out what you don't like before you find what you like. But a little sort of quick story on me. I'm of Cuban descent. So my family came to the United States when I was 2 years old, escaping sort of political or seeking political asylum. I grew up in Miami. Had a great time growing up in that city. Lots of partying, lots of fun. Kept myself out of as much trouble as I possibly could. But it was because of the fact that as I was getting ready to graduate high school, I didn't really have like a thing in my heart that's like, this is what you're meant to do. It just wasn't there yet, right?
Right.
So I ended up joining the military. I went into the Marine Corps like 2 weeks after high school, partly to sort of repay the country that had provided my family with so much freedom and the ability to, not do what we could have done in our homeland. But also because I felt kind of lost. Coming out of the Marine Corps, coming out of the military, again, I found myself at sort of a fork in the road. I thought I was going to be a police officer like my brother, who's been a cop for about 30 years now. Really respect him. And then I had a buddy that came along. He's like, man, cops get shot at. No one likes cops. He's like, come and be a fireman. He goes, you work 9 days a month. People think you're a hero. I love that. So I ended up becoming a paramedic and a fireman, and did that for about 7 years. And again, here I was in this really wonderful career that was super rewarding, doing really cool work, but my heart still felt like I wasn't doing my calling. And after a year of sort of soul searching, I decided to walk away from that career and go back to school full time, man, at almost 32 years old, to seek a degree in psychology. Yeah. And I'll be honest, the intention there wasn't even to start a practice or a business or to even do therapy. I had really wanted to get the degree so that I can have a more profound understanding of the human condition and why we function the way that we do. But the ultimate goal was sort of to be a motivational speaker, and I wanted to have that foundation to me.
Okay.
But when I got into grad school and I was in the therapy office for the first time, that's when it hit. I felt like I was home. And I was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is my calling. And so it was sort of just, I kind of bumped into it in the dark, but here I am now, and I absolutely love what I do. I get to help people shift their lives in these really amazing ways. I had a gentleman in here just yesterday that I've been working with for about a year. Older gentleman, but like with a very, like with tears in his eyes, really saying to me like, hey, thank you for saving my life. Thank you for being such a safe place where I can come and work through some of the things in my life that I had never spoken about up until now. And so that means the world to me, man. I feel so blessed to be able to be that for people and to be able to do that work.
Oh, that's wonderful, man. So Carlos, speaking of men, we have a hard time talking about our personal lives, and especially traumatic things that have happened in the past.
Yeah.
How is it that you get men to talk about those things?
Oh man, a lot of patience and a lot of space, right? Anytime anyone feels that they're being encroached on or that you're trying to pull for emotion too quickly, they're going to back off. They're going to do their natural, sort of the unconscious will create distance there. I think the way I do it is by sharing my own experience, Jason. I tell a lot of men that I work with about my own story growing up with a Hispanic father who was a very authoritative, disciplinary father. And when you didn't do things to his expectation, you got a spanking, or you got some strong words. And that when you grow up in a lot of Hispanic cultures, there are also African-American cultures, some Muslim cultures, some Asian cultures, where the message from a very early point is no crying, suck it up, no feelings here.
Right.
So I think from a very early age as kids, we start to develop a sense of like shame or guilt around feeling any sort of feelings of sadness or resent or anything like that. And what we do is we come conditioned to push all that stuff down. So here I was for 18 years of my life while living at home with my father. This is the message I got. Then I went into the Marine Corps, which was more of that, like you don't show weakness, you got to suck it up, you got to keep moving forward. And then a culture of in the fire department of the same thing. So here I was at 32 years old. On the outside, you can look at my life and it really looked like I had it together, Jason. But on the inside, man, I was suffering, man. I was depressed. There was just so much stuff that I had been pushing down for so many years that it was coming out in my relationships. I was angry. I would get frustrated. I would scream. Road rage, like all of these other ways it was seeping out, right? Until I finally went to therapy and I was like, hey, I got to address this stuff, right?
Right.
And yeah, it absolutely felt scary and it absolutely felt vulnerable to do so. But when I started to see how my life was transforming as a result of me getting that stuff out and really coming to understand where my emotions come from and how I can express those in a way that still make me feel like a man, but that also I can really embrace the sort of feminine energy in me, right? The part that, watches a really like happy commercial and the tears well up here. Like, I'm like, man, I can embrace that part of me too. So I think it's leading by example and letting men know it's absolutely safe to talk about how these things have impacted us.
Oh, that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So you have a men's group right now, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I can definitely speak to that. I got excited. I didn't even let you finish your question.
Go ahead.
It's funny. I have a shirt here that we just created for our men's group. And the men's group is called The Circle. And here's our message sort of in the back: community through brotherhood.
Awesome.
And it's beautiful, man. I sort of had the idea to do this for some time. And there's a buddy of mine, he's become a good friend, who's also a business owner. He's coming from the fitness industry, and he was a personal coach for a really long time, owns his own gym. And I happened to mention to him one day what the idea was for this group. He's like, man, I've had the same thing in mind. So we sat down, we fleshed it out, we collaborated on it, and we came up with The Circle. It's called The Circle. And The Circle is a place where men come to feel that safe space where they can come and be vulnerable, man, and talk about the challenges in their relationship, their challenges around being a father, the challenges around the pressures that we feel that society puts us on us sometimes to have to always have it together, right? To be put together. And we just finished our first group that went through, and Jason, it was, man, so beautiful to see and heart opening to see the way these men stepped in, supported each other, were able to tell their stories from a place of real sensitivity and heart, and to grow and heal together. And the massive shifts that were happening in their lives just in 8 weeks. So, our purpose is to keep growing this group, to maybe take it on the road and maybe in some other cities, and really develop a sort of a culture and a message of it's okay not to be okay, and that it's okay to talk about the things that we struggle with, and it's okay to be about, to be open about them, and to let our heart heal, so that we can start showing up for the people in our lives much better, be better sons, better husbands, better fathers, all of that stuff, man.
Oh man, that's great. I need to talk to you about this, because I would love to support you with it and see how we can collaborate on it.
Absolutely. We've had a lot of requests for a virtual version. So I got some people out in California and in other states that are like, man, we really want to be able to jump in on this. So yeah, let's have a conversation and see how we can have maybe a virtual group and really make an impact and make a difference in the world, man, especially for men.
Sounds good. Good. Yeah. So Carlos, in today's society, on TV and the media, especially, man, with athletes and veterans that have come out of the military, they're having some hard problems with anxiety, depression, and suicidal thoughts. Yeah. What are your feelings on this, and how are you addressing that with your clients?
Yeah. My conceptualization of this, Jason, is that very much from not only my own example of my own life that I just shared with you, but of many of the men that I have worked with, whether they've been veterans or athletes, like you said, or one of the sort of niche populations that I work with here in Tampa is entrepreneurs and business owners. Right? Here is another population of people where the culture demands that you don't show any weakness, right? So a lot of the people coming through my door have just been used to, whether because of the programming from the culture and society and their family, to always be pushing emotions and pushing stuff down, to be able to speak to the things that can feel difficult in our lives, right? And so my conceptualization of what's happening when we're experiencing anxiety and depression, it is a process of getting exhausted by putting on a mask and pushing everything down, putting on a mask so that people don't see those sides of us that feel very vulnerable. right?
Right.
So the work that I'm doing is things like this, man, getting on podcasts and talking about my experience and talking about some of the men that I've worked with so that people can see, wow, there's real healing that goes on here. I mean, I had a veteran here in my office the other day who shared something with me. And I mean, this was a tough guy. This guy was like special forces and everything like that. Where even me as a Marine, I was like, man, this guy's pretty he's a pretty badass. But he shared something with me with so much pain and heaviness in his heart, Jason, that it brought him to tears. And he said to me, Doc, that is the first time I've ever uttered those words out loud in 30 years.
Wow.
30 years this man's been carrying that heaviness in his heart, man. How was he not going to be anxious and depressed? How was he not going to be struggling in his relationships? How was he not going to be struggling with motivation and everything like that? Of course, right?
Yeah.
Because these things, they get too heavy. I feel really fortunate that I have my own sort of life experiences to put on the table for these people, because the second you open up about your story, you give permission for other people to open up about their hard stuff.
That's true. Yes.
If you've ever been at a gathering, at a party, and someone drops something that feels sort of very, vulnerable, they take off their mask, like, oh, other people are like, oh, that's welcome here. And you see how people are able to open up. So I believe in leading by example, man, and telling my story and just letting people understand from a clinical psychology perspective that this process of repressing emotions can get really dangerous for us, and that there's a healthier way to navigate that stuff, where then we start to experience, like I said earlier, more of a sense of joy and happiness in our lives, more peace, more abundance.
That's great. This past week, we had an online webinar for suicide prevention. I mean, the thing that's going on with kids right now from 10 to 14 years old, God, what do you recommend for these kids?
Yeah, man. I think our world is hurting right now emotionally, man, and psychologically. We're in a lot of pain. We're in a lot of suffering. I think some of that has to do with the constant pressure we feel to show up in the world. What I mean by that is, if you think about it, most of us from a very early age had a lot of value placed on success and achievement, right? Get the best grades, be the best baseball player, be the best at piano, ballet, whatever. And I get why parents do that. They do it as a way to sort of build up resilience and build confidence in us. But I think what a lot of parents don't see sometimes is that if there's a constant message of be better, what the child in their young, early developmental mind starts to believe is like, man, nothing I do is good enough for you.
Right.
So they start to feel a sense of like, the only way I can be loved or valued by you is when I'm meeting your expectations and your standard, right? So the kid comes home with 5 A's and a B, and the parents are focused on the B, not saying anything about all of the effort it takes to have done this other good work. And you see how a child could start to develop over time this idea that like, oh, I am only of value when I am doing what society and my parents and the people in my life want me to be.
Yes.
That's tough, man, because if you're trying to navigate the world from that lens, you can see how we fall into a place as adults where nothing ever feels good enough. We're constantly chasing what I call an illusion, right? We think that the new car is going to make us feel better. We think that the bigger house, the bigger bank account, the raise, the promotion is going to make us feel better. And then people are finding themselves in their 30s, 40s, and 50s absolutely lost and wondering why they don't feel that internal sense of love and validation and appreciation, because we've gotten too busy seeking it externally, and we're not going to find it there. It's only temporary, right? And so I think kids are starting to feel that pressure earlier and earlier on. So I say what we do about it is we start having conversations with parents. We start having conversations with because I think they're the ones that are sort of at the root of that sort of beginning.
Absolutely.
And that for kids, we start with the message that it's absolutely okay to fail. It's absolutely okay to feel not enough sometimes. It's okay to feel like you're different, like really allowing people the space to feel all of the emotions that we feel as human beings, and not to label it as something that's negative or bad. Right. And when we can do that, not only for our kids in our society, but for each other, man, if I can, really show up for you and give you permission to be in all of the places that you are, I mean, what sort of society can we start to live in from that place,
Mm-hmm. Yes. I mean, I can see why your counseling and wellness center is flourishing. You're phenomenal, man.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Yeah.
So, man, you just got engaged.
Yeah.
And, you would think that if both of you are therapists and counselors, that, if you have a problem, it's got to be seldom. And when it does happen, you're able to work through it very, very easily.
Yeah.
But obviously, you're going to have problems too. How do you work through those things with your fiance?
Man, that's a great question. It's been a really beautiful process to watch. I think, especially as men, we have a tendency to be fixers and rescuers, right? If you give us a problem, we want to work with it with our rational mind. Here's the solution. Let's just fix it. But when we're talking about matters of the heart, Jason, oftentimes there's nothing to fix, right? Like if I have someone that passes away that I'm really close to, you can't fix my grief.
No.
Right? You can't tell me, oh, at least they're in a better place, or, you'll get over it, or time will heal. Like, I don't want to hear all that stuff. I want to be with my sadness right now. I want to grieve this person, right?
Yes.
And so rarely in these emotional moments is there a thing to fix. So the first thing that my partner and I do is when we approach each other with whatever's going on in the relationship, we're coming at it from a place of like, I don't have anything to fix in you and you don't have anything to fix in me. It's about sharing what we're experiencing through each other. Oh, maybe you said something that felt really hurtful for me, but maybe it actually wasn't really hurtful. Maybe it's that I got home that day and I was so stressed out with what's going on in my business, and someone cut me off, just before I got to the house. And when I get to the house, I'm in like an aggravated state and I snapped at you, right? And when you bring that to my attention, I can either defend that stance, because a lot of us get into this place of defending the ego, like, no, I'm right. Most of us rather be right than to be happy. And in our relationship, we rather be happy. So we're going to have the difficult conversations. We're going to have the vulnerable conversations. I'll give you a really cool example of something that happened early on in our relationship. To even give you a backdrop of this, I grew up in a family, my parents argued a lot. They didn't have the most happy and successful marriage. I mean, they stayed together, they worked it out for the kids, but I grew up watching them fight and bicker often.
Wow.
So of course, if that's what's been modeled for you, if that's what you see in my early relationships in my 20s, I thought arguing with somebody and, being at each other's throats was just a part of the game. I just thought that's what you did. So I didn't have the healthiest relationships in my 20s and even early 30s. But when I met her, I remember the first real argument that we got into. And I was in that place where I was feeling righteous and I was going to defend my stance, even though I knew I was wrong, because we do that sometimes, right? And I remember her saying something to me, and I got so frustrated and upset because I wasn't feeling heard, right? And when I don't feel heard, what I came to learn about myself in therapy is when I don't feel heard, the only way to express that is through aggression and anger. That's what I learned from my father, right?
Okay.
So here I was about to get angry with her, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to go in the other room and take a minute, right? This is a really good tool that I think a lot of couples should use. And she gave me my space, and as I was going into the other room, Jason, I thought to myself, you know what? I don't need this garbage. I don't need this in my life. I should just pack my things and go. And the next immediate thought was like, whoa, man, that feels like why is that the thought, to escape and run? Like, she just shared something with you that had upset her, and your internal reaction is to pack your stuff and go. But I had to sit with the other part, which is this person is like the most compassionate and loving human being I've ever met in my life. They're not out here to attack me. They're not out here to get me. Lower your walls, lower your stance, have a conversation. And so she was such a compassionate mirror to my past experience that I had to look at myself inwardly and see where I was wrong. And so that's what we try to be for each other. A very non-judgmental, compassionate space, because I know her stuff from her past is going to show up.
Right.
My stuff from my past is going to show up. So let's give each other the space to allow that to happen without taking it personally, and then talking through the things and coming out at the end at a place of love, which is the ultimate goal, right? To respect each other, to love each other, and to continue to work with each other's stuff, right? I heard this this guy on social media once talked about that. Probably he was a psychologist. That probably the best question to ask on a first date is like, tell me about all of your baggage. Let me tell you about all of mine, and let's figure out a way that we can navigate around that. Because we do, man. We show up in our relationships with all of our old stuff, and that's absolutely okay as long as we don't let it get in the way.
Right. I mean, nobody's going to be perfect.
Of course not. I mean, that's unrealistic, right?
Yeah.
So if you're even going into the relationship with that expectation, essentially what we're doing is we're setting up ourselves for disappointment, right?
Yes. That's a great point, man. And if everybody knew this kind of information going into a relationship, you know, how many more relationships would be saved?
Totally, man. Totally. And you know, Jason, a lot of people reach out and want to talk to me as a clinical psychologist and a therapist, you know. And I know that there's still, in this country and in many countries, a real stigma around mental health and what that means, right? That going to see a psychologist or a therapist means you're broken or there's something wrong with you or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But my whole approach here is, I was never given a manual on how to handle emotions or how to understand my frame of mind, my way of thinking, right? So my whole journey in this process, even in going to my own therapy, in the books that I have read, is to understand myself from a level which allows me to master myself and not let my mind be the thing that's mastering, or emotions, which can hijack us at that point. I don't want my anger, frustration mastering my life. I want to master those emotions.
Right.
So what I tell people is that going to see a therapist isn't about, you know, fixing some part of you that's broken. It's about gaining enlightenment. It's about learning about yourself. It's about really, you know, getting into the relationships in your life, whether it's with your partner, with your friends, with your colleagues, with your coworkers, with your employees, to have the emotional intelligence to navigate these things in the most strategic way, in the most in a way that feels good in our hearts, right? So for me, therapy is about growth, man. And you know, I even tell my clients this, like, I'm not there yet. I went to therapy for the first time when I was 20 something.
Yeah.
And still now, if I'm navigating something in life and I feel stuck or like I don't understand, or I'm doing something that I don't fully comprehend, I'm like, okay, I need to go to my therapist and find out where are the blind spots? What am I missing here? I'm on a road to constant self-discovery and growth. And I think we all should be, because like you said, what kind of world do we start to live in? How can we start showing up for others in our relationships when we're coming from that place, man? It's just beautiful to watch. It really is.
Yes, absolutely. So, Carlos, how can people find you on social media?
Yeah. So 2 ways. They can look us up on Tampa Counseling and Wellness on both Facebook and Instagram. And there, you know, we post a lot of stuff about therapy and sort of destigmatizing what it looks like to come and see one of our therapists and work through stuff. Or they can also find me. I have my own personal accounts on both Facebook and Instagram, and that's LifeDoc.
Okay. Sounds great. What is your website?
TampaCounselingandWellness.com.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Or if anyone is sort of interested, again, we're looking to put a virtual option for the men's group together, but they can go to thecircletampa.com and find a little information about the men's group that we're running as well. Great.
Yes, let's put something together. I'm organizing a calendar for July. So I would love to put your events on our website and offer them to our community as well.
Let's do it, man. I would love to do that with you.
Great. Carlos, man, this has been an awesome interview. We have to have you back.
I would love it, man. I love it. And I love what you're doing, Jason, man. Keep it up. The world needs, you know, stuff like this right now. And hearing from people that are, have found the ways to navigate life with you know, more happiness and joy. And so I love what you're putting together. I'm here to support anything you're doing, brother.
Thank you so much, Carlos. Yeah, God bless you, man.
Likewise.
All right. Take care.
You well.
Thank you for watching Victory Circle Podcast. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel.